Hey YouTube, welcome back to Science with Sully. Today I wanted to talk about redox reactions. Redox reactions are popular in lower level biology because they're really important and they're happening all the time. So to understand redox reactions, we first need to understand two things. First, we need to understand reduction. Reduction is the gaining of electrons. And when we say electrons in this case, we're talking about hydrogen. If you remember, hydrogen has one proton and one electron. And also in the electron transport chain, they're referred to as electrons. But it's a hydrogen. Oxidation is the losing of electrons. And again, electrons will be hydrogens. So with this in mind, remember reduction is the gaining of electrons. Oxidation is the losing of electrons. And there's a really neat mnemonic that you can use and you'll never forget. Oil, rig. Oxidation is losing. Reduction is gaining. So, oil rig. You'll never forget. So, let's look at an example of a redox reaction. Well, we're going to use a 4-carbon molecule. And let's see. So, let's fulfill our octet with, and this is a 4-carbon hydrocarbon. And this is one of many molecules that would undergo a redox reaction. So this, if we remember oil, rig, this has electrons. Our electrons are our hydrogens. So this would be the reduced form of this hydrocarbon because it has electrons. So what would happen if we had an enzyme, let's see, if we had an enzyme that came in contact with this hydrocarbon and it was an oxidase. Well, this oxidase is going to oxidize this hydrocarbon. What would that look like? Well, would you lose all of your electrons? No. Would you lose most of them? Absolutely. This would be the oxidize version. It has lost its electrons that once existed out here, and the telltale sign of something being oxidized are these double bonds that you're seeing right here to fulfill that octet of those 4 carbons. So what would be the enzyme that makes it go back to reduction, the reduced form? That enzyme would be a reductase. And a reductase would interact with the oxidized form and reduce it to the reduced form. Now, there are plenty of reasons why an oxidase needs to oxidize a hydrocarbon or why a reductase needs to reduce, but the point of this video is just to show you what you would maybe see on a test or a quiz is if they ask what the reduced hydrocarbon or what the oxidized hydrocarbon would be, the one with more hydrogens, that one's going to be your reduced. Why? Because more hydrogens means more electrons. And remember, oil rig. Reduction is gaining electrons. So now, if you think of an oxidized hydrocarbon, if it asks if this is oxidized or reduced, well, let's see. Does it have electrons? Sure it does. But does it have double bonds? Absolutely. If it has double bonds, that's a pretty telltale sign that it is oxidized. So, more double bonds equals oxidized. Because it's lost those electrons but still needs to fulfill the octet of these carbons. And in turn, it's going to have less electrons or hydrogen atoms. The same thing. And keep in mind the two types of enzymes that would do these reactions. If it's a reduced hydrocarbon that needs oxidizing, oxidase would come into play. And if it's an oxidized hydrocarbon that needs reducing, a reductase would come into play. I hope this video was helpful for you. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel for more content that's always coming out. And please come back to Science with Sully.